Now, I think it's very fair to say that Disney's worst year of all time was 2023, which so happened to be their 100th anniversary. I don't know if you guys recall, but I believe it was on October 16th, which was the very day in which the Daily Wire really dropped their iteration of Snow White for 2024 this year to kind of compete against Disney's 2025 Rachel Zegler's Snow White film. And that all took place during their 100th anniversary year, and that was just the beginning. They were dealing with South Park Studios. They began to deal with the ongoing callouts by Elon Musk against Bob Iger, and it's only getting worse as we go throughout this year. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, we all know that Bob Iger was always planned to have semi-retirement when Bob Chapek was in the picture. I think that this was all way too obvious to begin with back a couple of years ago, right? Now, one could argue that everything that's happening to Disney right now is because of Chapek and his fault, but in reality, yes, he was the starting point of why Disney's going through all the failures that they are going through right now, but Bob Iger's not helping. He's really making it all the more worse by doubling down on their usage of DEI, and after Bob Iger recently admitted that they're killing quite a number of projects that they feel just don't meet the time and energy to invest in those, well, what's interesting about this moving onwards has a lot to do with the firing of the Disney president and exactly what's going on with, of course, everything related to live action material moving onwards. Let's discuss. Now, specifically, one thing about, of course, Bob Iger is that with Bob Iger already beginning to cancel many Disney-related projects, one major development involves much to do with the ongoing situation after the Disney president was recently fired from the Walt Disney Company live-action division. As it turns out, there is a massive shakeup happening right now between the board of directors and Bob Iger over the firing of Sean Bailey, after he was and has been making much noise behind the scenes after Bob Iger broke a significant promise that was made to Sean Bailey, who is now handling Tron 3 as a producer as part of his exit plan. However, the drama recently got even worse after Bob Iger switched up his plans for the third Tron film and also removed Bailey from two other projects that dwindled his payout by tens of millions after getting removed from the Pirates remake and Sword in the Stone. With Sean Bailey now fired and only producing Tron 3 as per his contract, the main reason why Bailey is freaking out behind the scenes and creating so many arguments against Iger is that Iger is now coming at full force to make this film, as in Tron 3, into an agenda-driven failure, essentially, that will promote DEI even more significant than their other planned projects. Now, initially, the promise that was made to Sean by Bob was this Tron 3 film would be basically an agenda-free project to shift away from all of the drama. However, the reason why Iger is keeping Bailey on board on Tron 3, as it turns out, is to use him eventually as a scapegoat if things go wrong, essentially. As Iger already used him to blame him for the failures of the Marvels, Ant-Man 3, Indiana Jones 5, and even more live-action based films like The Little Mermaid, not meeting box office expectations. After those failures, Bailey began to argue with Bob Iger about their agenda, and this ultimately was, of course, creating the shakeup that's happening to today, before his firing and after. It turns out, of course, Bob Iger let Bailey go since he was questioning Iger's push for DEI, with David Greenbaum now taking over Sean, who is even more extreme than Bailey was, of course, with the live-action movies. In addition to all of this, Bob Iger and his actions toward the Disney president is now, of course, creating a large division between some board members that's creating a big mess behind the scenes for the corporate ladder for Disney as they aim to double down their usage of DEI. Now, Sean Bailey is also now willing and preparing to call out new truths related to Bob Iger's actions about his removal from the live-action department at Disney and how he was blamed for all the agenda pushing and the rise of DEI. Something that was, of course, all made by Bob Iger and the board beforehand, with David Greenbaum now essentially, of course, a Bob Iger puppet and upping the ante with their agenda for all Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney-related material. The situation is only getting worse for Disney's slate of 2025 films and TV shows for Disney+. Already Sean Bailey is beginning to warn Disney that he is willing to step down from producing Tron 3 as a form of an ultimatum to convince Bob Iger to step back from their usage of DEI and their agenda in the third movie, which is now, by the way, going through a change of plans to becoming a soft reboot instead. Something that Bailey was also furious about against Bob Iger, since he wanted this to be a direct sequel to Tron Legacy, which it no longer is. Now guys, let me stop here quick before I move on. Now again, we know that Tron 3, not a big shocker, it's going to be treated like Pirates of the Caribbean 6, it's going to be a soft reboot, it's not going to feature the main cast, there's no word about Olivia Wilde coming back, or Garrett Hedlund, or even Jeff Bridges. That's all not happening as of right now. This is not a real sequel, so to speak, to Tron Legacy. This is kind of like a reset with very light connections to the past two films. Basically what Pirates of the Caribbean 6 is about to do. Now, what's interesting about this too is that Bailey was promised that this was going to be a sequel, it was going to be agenda-free, they weren't going to go so extreme with the DEI push, and turns out that was all a lie again. Again, that's why I call him Bob Iger. He not only lies to customers and shareholders, but also those involved in the corporate ladder. Not a big, shock. Are we really all that shocked? I'm sure not. But moving onwards. Also, Iger made a plan after his emergency meeting to share his side of the story about the removal of Sean Bailey, which will go public next month, from all live-action projects after he fired him and altered his exit deal to work on 3 movies that are now down to 1. So again, guys, Bailey is no more. He's not working on live-action movies in the grand scheme of things, but he will be producing Tron 3, and that's it. He won't be leading the whole live-action department, that's no more. And now you got somebody even more extreme coming on board, David Greenbaum, so expect a lot more failures in the future. This is no sign of resolution. They're not aiming to fix anything with David Greenbaum. If anything, it's going to make things worse, and I think it's the main reason why Bob Iger literally announced a couple of days ago that they are already canceling numerous projects, and as it turns out, guys, those projects were agenda-free projects. Something that we also hinted at a couple of weeks ago about what Bob Iger was doing with the board. So again, I think that Sean Bailey has every right in his mind to speak what he, of course, is going through and what he feels to the general public eventually, and it really truly is unfair of what Bob Iger is doing. Basically, he's breaking promises, not just the shareholders, which, by the way, I don't know why shareholders are still around if they keep getting lied to, but he's also doing this to high-status individuals at Disney, like Sean Bailey was. And that just goes to show you the true nature of Bob Iger. Alright, he may seem like a mild-mannered guy, but behind all that, he really is someone that has an ulterior motive. So overall, guys, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this ongoing scenario from Bob Iger, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.